Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is D.H. Thorne here. I want to thank those of you who have made an effort to purchase my book. And what I'm going to be doing today is sort of related to something that is in the book. In the end of the book, there's actually a section that discusses and details one possible method for obtaining a familiar from a spirit. And of course, I use President Malphus in the example, but there are several others. And there's many different kinds of familiar spirits. This is just one possible method that you can use to ask for and have a familiar spirit work with you. And the method that I use in this book is pretty much word for word the system I used for Nicodemus, which is my current primary familiar. Now, some would say, well, you only need one familiar or whatever. That's not really true. You can have as many entities at your disposal in companionship as you desire, or as your spirits desire, because you have to understand these are, by and large, gifts from, some would call them patron spirits or something like that. Any spirit that is close to you, has a relationship with you, wants to bless you with an assistant, may do so. Now, a lot of people believe that familiars are pets, and there's some truth and some inaccuracy to that. A lot of people have a pet cat and they just say, "This is my familiar." It's a game. It's a toy. It's role playing, as far as I'm concerned. A true familiar is a spiritual being, not unlike any other spiritual being. They're not necessarily weak. They can be incredibly powerful. Calling them lesser spirits isn't really fair. They can be actually quite powerful spirits. They can even be people who have passed away. This can be necromantic in nature. And there are many different forms and varieties they can take. However, an animal, some kind of animal that is somehow bound to you spiritually, doesn't really fall into that category for me the same way as it does for most people who just kind of have a pop culture idea of what a familiar is. So a familiar can absolutely use animals as anchors or vessels. It can possess animals. It can work through animals. There's no question. It can even have a favorite animal that it likes to work through. And this is more or less, in my opinion, the source of this idea that animals can be familiars. However, I would not willingly subject or force any animal to contain or be an anchor for a spirit. I don't really see it as advantageous. And if it is required, if the spirit desires it, if Malphus, King Paimon, whatever entity is gifting me this familiar spirit, truly desires that, then that's their prerogative, and it's up to me to accept or decline that offer. You don't always have to accept an offer from the spirit if you don't like it. The reason I don't necessarily like the idea of using a pet as an anchor is because they have their own will, their own life, and if it's somehow against their will, which I don't believe it normally would be with most of the spirits I work with, they would not force anything onto a pet, because they have respect for their individuality, even such as it is, we'll say. So other spirits will differ, though. Other spirits don't care. So my point here is that this idea that it's your pet cat, that's your familiar, doesn't really work for me. What I see them as, what I've experienced them as, is a spirit not unlike the others that you may work with in your practice, except that they become a familiar of yours. They become either anchored to an object you own, anchored to you, anchored to your family, to your household, and they are very specifically focused on you. They don't serve others. And I've had people jokingly say they're going to steal my familiar and all this other stuff. Unless you obtain the anchor, the most you will get is an illusion that you have access to my familiar, because it doesn't work that way. If I sent my familiar to you, if I tried to attack you with it, you could hurt it. Absolutely, you could do things to it. It would probably not destroy it. It would probably you'd probably disperse it, and it would come back to its anchor to rest and recuperate. And familiars kind of lose their synchronization with their owner, master, whatever, if they're not interacted with. So in a lot of ways, they're like an egregore or a servitor. If they're not properly maintained, they can, not always, some don't care, they can sort of disappear from your life and not come back. They can also, in some cases, turn on you. And I explain a lot of these things in the book about how they might turn on you, what to do if you suspect that they do, and things like that. But a familiar is loyal pretty much to you and to the entity that gave it to you. So generally, in my experience, a familiar doesn't get suddenly bad unless the entity itself is somehow questionable already, because familiars can be loyal, familiars can be independent, and familiars can even be downright rebellious. You can even be given a familiar spirit that is being punished, essentially, that is a being that is locked into service of a higher being for whatever reason. And either by choice, maybe it chose this, maybe it wants to be punished, maybe it's got a masochistic streak to it. Some do require regular punishment, and you will be instructed in the means of their punishment. So, let's say King Paimon gives to you like a little impish spirit, right? That is just a hypothetical. That that needs to be imprisoned and tormented, poked and prodded, essentially. Maybe he will give you instructions to create a hot poker out of like a bamboo stick or something and burn it in a fire till it's red hot, and then stab the sigil and all this kind of stuff. It can be really wild, the kinds of things that you can be asked and required to do to maintain and energize them. And the astute spiritualist will understand that it is not that burning the sigil does anything. It's the intention there, and it's the intention, it's the energy. And these spirits may feed upon the energy of suffering or the energy of the intent to cause suffering, things like that. It's never how we interpret it is almost never really what matters. So the other day, while at work, King Paimon made an arrival at my job, basically, and he seems to like coming to my job to give me the most profound experiences, because maybe something about my mentality when I'm at work, maybe I'm a little, sometimes I zone out, or sometimes maybe it's because it's during the day, maybe it's because of the setting, maybe it's because of whatever reason he likes to come to me at my job with the most profound visual and audible experiences. And he came to my job this time, and with him was only what I could describe as some kind of very ancient, prehistoric scholar. This was like imagine like a not Paleolithic, but almost like Conan kind of, era. Like it's very early civilization, maybe, before Egypt, but after Göbekli Tepe, you know what I mean? Like something ancient, maybe Sumerian, maybe older, and very dark skin, very Nubian, very like pitch black skin, scholarly kind of tribal looking gentleman. And he had him with him, and the only way I can describe what happened was that it wasn't a conversation, it was impressionistic. I got impressions of what I was supposed to know. And he showed me the image of this statue, this bust that I had purchased at an antique store sometime over the winter. And when I had gone to this antique store and I had found this bust, you can ask my wife, I more or less was drawn to it, and when I picked it up, I felt ill. I felt not bad ill, but I felt like an energy wave, okay? It totally destabilized me, and I had to decide, is this a good or a bad thing? Do I want to bring this into my home? And I asked myself, will I feel better if I leave it behind, or worse? And undoubtedly I said I'd feel worse if I left it behind. And I don't mean sicker, I mean I'd feel like I made a mistake. So I purchased it and I brought it home. Now this isn't like some kind of ancient antique. This is a reproduction of, kinds of things that people would get. And my friend Waylon had said that, a lot of these represent African gods and things like that. And that the spirits are attracted to them regardless. And he sort of suggested that, maybe this could be a spirit, an African spirit that is here. But from what I understand of what King Paimon was showing me, was that the spirit that he had with him wanted to become an ally of mine, wanted to work with me, and was sort of a kind of reward for the successful completion and release of my book. And sharing that information and giving him, the honor of being the first spirit that you were meant to contact after Lucifer, and all of these things. So he brought this spirit to me and indicated very strongly that his intention was for this spirit to be anchored to this object so that I may commune with it to help guide me on further projects in writing. Because this being, as far as I was given the understanding and the little bit of communion that I've been able to do with it, it showed me visions of it in my astral tower managing my library, and would be sort of a teacher for me. So this spirit would be sort of a teacher that would guide me, because King Paimon's not always going to be in my life all the time, neither are all my other spirits. Are not always going to be sitting with me. So this spirit is supposed to be an entity that I can call upon to guide me in my studies, my own instruction of myself. So when I'm looking for old manuscripts and I'm trying to read through the old grimoires that I often poo-poo but often realize I need to study them better, he's going to guide me and give me insights into them as I work with them, and guide me in writing and making videos, as a matter of fact. So this entity is going to be dwelling spiritually. It's anchored into this object so I can commune with it easily, simply by handling it, feeling it, entering into an energetic state with it, just like I would with this anchor for my other familiar. But its actual presence will be in my astral tower. And this is something that, of course, whether you're aware of it or not, is something you can do. You can create in the astral realm your own personal abode, which I've sort of toyed with. I've sort of started thinking about what I would like to do with it, and it's not very hard to do. Pretty much every time you visualize it and improve upon it and make it more real to you, it becomes more real in the astral, and spirits will help you build it and help you fortify it and make it and fill it with things that represent you. And some would even say, like Waylon and some others, I'm sure he'd probably agree with me, that this could become a spiritual abode for yourself in the afterlife potentially. So it's an interesting concept. Maybe I'll do a book all about that at some point in the deep future. We'll see. So what I'm doing here today, in the next few minutes, I'm going to be entering a ritual. And I'm not going to make this too complicated. This is not going to follow the exact structure of the book, because this is not a spirit that is quite like Nicodemus, where I had decisions to make. This is a spirit which is already, as it is, presented to me. And I have to create a conduit between myself and it to place it into this anchor object. It's not very difficult. More than anything, it's just requires an intensity of intention and putting enough energy into this object to clear it of whatever energies are in there, and then to bring the spirit in question into it and make an offering to it. And I've already been given some instruction on what it wants. It wants a regular infusion or offering of honey and blood. So that means once a month I have to put blood on a sigil with honey, place it in my cauldron and burn it as an offering to it, after, of course, energizing it in ritual. So this is going to be fairly simple, as always. I don't do very complicated ceremonial magic. This is mostly going to be mediumship and pushing energy into things. I don't know if you'll be able to pick up on any of that while you watch this. I might not actually include a lot more. I may simply, one of the things I don't like is to be distracted by the idea that I'm being watched, unless it is with people that I really am comfortable with. So we'll see how much comes through in the video. But if not much, at least I'll be showing you, silent video where you can see what I'm doing and get an idea of what's going on. And then maybe if I have to, I'll come back and talk some more about my experience. So we'll see. I might even talk through it and do the video live that way. So we'll see. Basically, I'm saying I don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see what happens next, okay? All right. Thanks. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am making use of binaural beats right now to help me. It's been a long day at work, and this will help me enter into a theta state. You want to enter this, what some people have called the theta gamma sync. this state of mental awareness where you're in a trance-like state. And so my ability to hear is going to be a little impaired to hear in the real world. So the camera may pick up things that I am not able to hear, but I'm listening with something other than my ears while I'm listening. So we'll see how this goes. Now, as you can see, I have a sigil prepared for King Paimon, and I have a sigil prepared already for the spirit. I already know his name, etc. Thorne, activate this altar, the throne of my divinity, and I enter into that holistic place of power. King Paimon, I feel your presence already. Thank you. King Paimon, I'm aware. Yes. Yes, King Paimon. I am recording this so that others may see one possible method of working. A simple way of doing. A way that requires little more than intention and will. Thank you, King Paimon. Unta, the great sage of his tribe. No, not a tribe, a kingdom. I feel you and I see you in my mind. Unta, you are very powerful and wise and ancient. Beloved companion of King Paimon, you have learned much from him, and he has learned much from you. Teach me of your kingdom. Teach me of your world. Show me the wisdom of your people. I see. You do not need a great deal of assistance. You shall do for yourself. Come into the altar. Take what energy you require. Come into the altar. I call upon you. Unta. 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 Come into the altar. Unta. I call to you. Join us. Become my ally. I shall give unto you my energy and power. I ask that you teach me, that you guide me, and that you awaken knowledge in me that I have forgotten or not known. Unta of the tribe of the Dark Ones. What was your tribe? What was your kingdom? It was a mighty kingdom. It was a mighty kingdom. A mighty kingdom of antiquity. A place that few know existed. A place some have spoken of. It is a place. Many rings and water. Many rings and water in a city. A great city. A great city. It was a great city lost to antiquity. What happened to your people, Unta? Unta, what happened to your people? I see water. I see destruction. I see famine. I see loss. Upon your death you had entered into, I understand. I understand. King Paimon. King Paimon was your patron, but he had another name. He was a titan. King Paimon. He was a king. A true king. Yes, King Paimon. Yes, I will. I will. I will do as you ask. For for those of you who don't know, King Paimon regularly does not appreciate a blood offering from me. He prefers other forms of offering. However, this being needs to become needs to gain needs to be given access, a conduit to my energy. This conduit. Unta, Unta the Dark One, Unta the Wise, Unta advisor to the king, Unta the king of advisors, Unta I give unto you this gift, Unta I open up a conduit of energy unto you, Unta I give to you this gift. I give unto you this gift of blood and honey, the gift of a king, to his most trusted advisor, for I am the king of my domain. King Paimon, I offer unto you as well a gift of honey, a gift of my affection. Thank you, great King Paimon. Thank you for this mighty gift. Thank you for this new era. It is done. Unta, take this gift and my blessing. Take it and return to me. When I call and when I visit you in the astral, you will be there. Thank you, Unta. Thank you. Thank you, Unta. I understand. Thank you, Unta. King Paimon, I invite you to remain in my household for as long as you desire, to be my companion tonight and to bring me further gnosis. Tonight I shall be doing a video with a friend who you probably know quite well. Yes, yes, you do know him. Daniel of the Damned Podcast. Go and give us your blessing tonight. Inspire me, and inspire those who will watch. King Paimon, thank you for your attendance. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for your friendship, companionship, and stewardship of my knowledge. Thank you. It is done. Thank you. It is done. My friends who have witnessed this, I can only can only describe for you the things that I was shown. A vast kingdom in concentric rings of water and earth. A vast kingdom, a place spoken of in antiquity. I have much research to do, but I already think I know what kingdom this must be. This is very interesting information. Unta, I already see you and I feel you. You are bound to nothing, but you are available through that bust. I can feel him. I can feel him even now. He is already organizing my knowledge. This should be very interesting to see how this goes from this point forward. Thank you, everyone. This is D.H. Thorne. I've been instructed it is time to end this video. If you would please make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you would, of course, consider purchasing my book. Magic really can be this easy. It does not require lengthy form rituals if you do not wish. Mediumship is actually quite easy. Holistic magic is quite easy. My book can help you. It can show you how simple it can be. And of course, you can continue, and as I am going to do, to commune with these spirits off camera. But I thank you for watching. The link in the description is to my book and to my magical services if you are interested in participating or supporting me. I don't humbly ask, but I do suggest you check them out with all due humility. Thank you, everyone. This is D.H. Thorne signing off. See you next time.